I very occasionally record podcasts, which you can find at anchor.fm/Grimstales.
Hello lovelies, today we're looking at another Degenesis book, half of the Justinian source book, which is two hardcover books in a slipcase, roughly the same size as the two core books, so there's a lot here, it's pretty dense. That said, a lot of the information would be spoilers for anyone looking to play a campaign based around this, so I have to be cagey about it all. And a lot of my criticisms and comments are the same as before, so this is mostly going to be a kind of leaf through, making comments as things occur to me, but otherwise pretty much what I've said before about the Degenesis books holds true, in that it is a beautiful idiot. Pretty vacant, as the Sex Pistols might say. There is no denying the quality of the book build, of the extras like a little ribbon, of the quality of the art, and the refreshingly daring quality of the art, which is all stuff that I welcome, but layout and comprehension are at odds here. Some people loathe white text on a black background. I have no issue with it, but I have no issue with black on white either. But some people find this very difficult to read, so it's always a bold choice. So like I say, most of the things that I've said about Degenesis hold true here. That the information is squirreled away in too much text, that it lacks immediate sort of refresher bullet points on things. It's not a very good way to convey information about an area. There's a reason that RPG source books are typically maps with short descriptions, and then maybe they go into deeper descriptions elsewhere, or you may have the deep description and then you'll have a list of the goods and services and so on within that area as a reminder. To me, the gold standard of a city source book or an area source book of any sort of kind is the Night City source book for Cyberpunk 2020, where it was broken down by area. You had maps, it had individual locations, but it also had sections of the book towards the beginning where it listed things by type. So if you wanted to find out where all the bars were, you could look that up. If you wanted to look up where all the shops were, you could look that up, and so on. So Justinian is focused on the Protectorate, which is it's hard to place because the maps have changed so much and countries don't exactly overlay each other, but I think it's meant to be sort of Germany, maybe a bit more towards Central Europe, and it's the home of the judges, who are these sort of wandering lawgivers who go around on horseback executing people with sledgehammers, which is, nice, I suppose. It is a powerhouse of an area, but not hugely technological. Black powder, hammers and cavalry is what most of it is set up as, but in terms of sheer numbers, people power, alliances, farmland and so on, it's a very important place. And as we go into this source book, the timeline's nice, by the way. As we go into this source book, they are besieged on all sides by all manner of different forces and have internal issues as well, which is why I can't really go into too much detail, because that would be spoilers for any campaign or game set up in this area. So we get a general sort of overview of the areas, and then it goes into more depth about the capital city. One thing that is good here is the fact sheets. So they give you like I was just complaining about a lack of bullet points. This is as close as you're going to get to bullet points, but it doesn't cover a lot of the information that you really need. I mean, it'll tell you the name of the city, what province it's in, how many people live there, what the structure of the population is, who the leader is, who the government is, features, which isn't in depth or broken down in any way, what they trade, what military forces and guards are available, what artifacts are available, what communications are available, and some other things according to which section it's on. But it really still doesn't break it down for you. So you have to wade through and read all the prose and probably make your own little reminder list. But if you've got this much real estate to produce a book, you would think that they could present that information for you. But they don't. So for all that it is powerful, this state relies on a lot of alliances or the domination of particular groups. It's very expansive, almost Holy Roman Empire-ish in a lot of ways. It's conquered a great deal of territory and perhaps overstretched itself, and then those chickens are coming home to roost. So it's kind of a story of empire potentially at its apex before its fall. And it's also an egotistical empire. A great deal of effort has been spent on attempting to impress the Neo-Libyans, who are the major financial and technological power in the world. This is more like a prideful backwater, I guess you could say. It's not too dissimilar to how you might say Russia is today, I suppose. A once proud and expansive empire under pressure on all sides and trying to find a way to cope with that and to regain their former glory, I guess. So yeah, it is a story of an empire breaking down in a lot of ways, but we can't really afford for the empire to break down. It seems to me that the domain of the judges, Justinian, is one of the sort of background plots from the sleepers that have been waking up from their cryosleep and attempting to reboot society, because this is a society of law and order, of structure and of rules and of enforcement, which is a good way of bootstrapping a society to one extent or another. But it has also become somewhat hidebound, unable to innovate and to advance, because it is simply too weighed down by tradition and codified laws and ways of doing things. So that is the story that I think that you get from this. But the thing is that there are also other groups whose fate is tied to this, who are perhaps more progressive, more interesting, more technological, but they have sheltered within the protection of this empire, even as at the same time it's holding it back a bit. So that's a tension that's interesting. The Anabaptists are also an important force here, producing a lot of food for the empire, but mostly somewhat cut off from the rest of it at this point. It goes into a few of the different powers and factions and how they're set up against each other, how the rulership of the whole place is under threat and potentially about to change. The way in which the cults, which are quite strong and kind of hitched to Justinian's wagon, how they interact, and also how they're exploited, which is quite interesting. Like the Spitalians, the kind of knightly order of medics descended from emergency medics from before the disaster. They do their best to keep the place hygienic, even though most people are ignorant of all that. So they have these troughs that people walk through in order to cleanse off their boots and shoes, so they're spreading disease and filth less. But there are groups that go up while they're distracted and steal the disinfectant from the troughs for various nefarious uses. So there's a lot of detail there if you go looking for it, but it is not simply and easily presented to you in a way that makes it easy to extract. And this is a daunting amount of text, even with the brilliant illustrations that present the world to you. So it's just something I wish we'd seen the back of after the White Wolf days. I mean, it's all lovingly crafted, it's well done, it suffers a bit from translation, but even so, you know, it's a good and interesting read. But you cannot possibly hold all of this information in your head at the same time, and it is not made for easy reference. So yeah, like I said, these are all familiar complaints. And the positives are the same as well. These are well-made, glossy, artistic products that are worth owning just as art books, even, or source books on an alternative world, whether or not you play it as an RPG. And it's a lovely, lovely object. It's just the usability that lets it down in a lot of ways. In terms of usefulness, there aren't a great number of statistics in here, and that has been what has redeemed some of the other supplementary material for Degenesis, has been that because the core books were lacking so much in terms of for want of a better term, a bestiary, that it really made the difference and made the source books more useful where they had a shit ton of statistics. Now there are some in here, but it is not proportionate to the size and scale of the book, and not necessarily quite as useful as it has been in other books that I have reviewed for this. I mean, given that this is, I'm not even finished and it's already 235 pages, so far we haven't really encountered any statistics, anything useful that you can extract for your own campaign and save time from. No, all of this has been information presented in a frankly less than useful way, unfortunately. But we do get to some statistics at the back, if I remember correctly. So let us keep going, because I don't have much more to say at the moment. Beneath the cities, particularly the capital, is particularly interesting. There's almost like an underground war going on between two factions there, and a lot of old technology and danger and threat down there. Here we have some statistics. So we do have finally some information here that is much more useful, but not enough of it. Yeah, here we are. Here we finally get some organised statistics. These are the sort of most wanted enemies of the area, but it doesn't actually give you their stats. It just gives you a comprehensible, readable breakdown what they're wanted for and what the bounty is, but it doesn't really give you the statistics for them. Where we do get statistics is for some of the warped and twisted clans. Full frontal male nudity, how's that for you? This is gold dust, but it is only a couple of pages for each of these threatening clan groups, warped and twisted enemies. And that is really what you need, and the most useful extraction you can take from this book. But that's about it. So to summarise, the same positives and the same negatives as most of the Degenesis material has. It's pretty, it's interesting, fascinating even, but it's not particularly practical. So style, can't really fault the book on that. It's one of the best quality RPG books ever produced, as the entire Degenesis line is, really. So 5 out of 5 for style. In terms of substance, there is a ton here, not presented in a particularly accessible way, so that will drop it from a 5 to a 4. And not a lot, except for the very end, a tiny fraction of the page count that is really practical to use. It's not quite enough, maybe, to knock it down another point, but I'm going to anyway, because this is at this point an entrenched problem with the books. And yeah, I know it's a dead game now and they're not going to be making any more, but even so, having produced and seen the shortcomings in the core book and the other books, maybe there should have been a change in tack. You would have thought so, and there wasn't. So I'm going to drop the substance to a 3 due to the presentation issues and the lack of crunch and directly usable content. So 5 out of 5 for style, 3 out of 5 for substance. That is a total of 8 out of 10, 4 out of 5. Still good, still worth having as an object, but as an example of how to produce a source book on an area, I think this is a counter example. And I appreciate that these reviews are getting repetitive, but it's the same issues every time, which may be a part of why Degenesis failed. Cost, accessibility, usability. Zang.
I don't often make explicitly political games, but The Little Grey Book is one of them. It's a parable about this social media panopticon we've all made, where everyone is always watching each other for anyone who steps out of line in any way. And The Little Grey Book is about the inescapability of upsetting someone. It's a one-trick pony, but it's a good one-trick pony. Available at DriveThruRPG and post-mort.com.